Hey, creative souls. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm really happy that you're here. My name is Johnny. I'm a published fiction writer and a retired adjunct writing professor. For 2 decades, I help college students get their words on the page. Now I help people write novels, and I teach screenwriting and fiction writing to adults in custody. I call myself a word witch, and if you want to know more about what I mean by that, check out my video called On Being a Word Witch. I believe I'm on this earth to heal the world through stories, whether it's the ones that I write and tell or the ones that I help you write and tell. I'm new here on YouTube, and I fully embrace the notion of energetic reciprocity. So if anything I say inspires you, helps you, benefits you in your writing practice in some way, I would sincerely appreciate your likes, shares, and subscribes. Because obviously, if I can grow this channel, I can do more in my quest to heal the world through story. And I will continue to give back to you in the best possible ways that I can. Because as I always say, stories can heal the world. So let's do it together. Today, I want to talk to you about 10 reasons you need to have a healthy writing practice. And there are a multitude of reasons. It's about far more than just getting words on the page to tell your stories. Honestly, the reasons for a healthy writing practice are absolutely exponential, but I've boiled it down to 10 that I think are very important. Some, there's like a slight overlap in them. They have a little bit, maybe different nuance, but these are, in my opinion, the top 10 reasons to have a healthy writing practice. So here we go. Number 1, it provides a mental and emotional catharsis. So it turns out there have been a multitude of studies done on the benefits of writing. And one of the top findings across nearly all of them, depending on the focus of the study, is that writing can provide deep, deep catharsis to the writer. And this can help free us from that backlog of emotions and memories that are unprocessed, because we all live in a chaotic world and we don't always have the time to process feelings and memories in a way that really frees us up from carrying them around, and they start to stack up and become this heavy load, this weight that we cart around with us. Writing can help us unload those. And the way this happens can get very complex, and so I won't go into that here, but just know, and I'm sure if you write, you have experienced this, the freedom, the emotional freedom, the weight that gets lifted when you write. You know what I'm talking about, okay? So number 1 reason, writing provides mental and emotional catharsis. Number 2, writing sharpens your memory. All right, so we can interpret this in a number of ways. So it has been found, especially if you write by hand, that there's something about writing by hand that helps kind of embed information into our brains. And so, for example, I am studying Italian right now. And even though we are given, in the course I'm taking, we are given handouts that we can study from, I download those and I keep them, but I write everything out by hand. All the examples, everything. Because I have found that when I write by hand, as studies show, I tend to remember things better. So if you are writing, say, nonfiction material, and there's a lot of research involved, chances are, if you do a fair amount of your writing at some stage in your process, you will retain that information that you're finding better if you do it by hand. And I have also found that, so the way my process works when I write fiction is I do my original brain dump at the keyboard. And I may do a little bit of editing with it there, but then I print my pages out and I read aloud and I pace. There's something about needing to get up and be walking back and forth that helps me with that next process of the editing and further writing. And then I write by hand at that point. Any editing that I do, any new writing, all happens by hand. And what I have found is that when I write by hand, I remember points in the story and where they have landed further down the line. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you're writing a story and in the beginning, it all just kind of gets jumbled together. And especially if you're writing a longer piece like a novel, then it's sometimes hard to remember where you put this or that, or where something landed in the storyline. But what I have found is that when I write by hand, I tend to keep those markers better in my mind. They're more clear to me than when I write at the keyboard. All right. So second reason for a healthy writing practice is writing can sharpen your memory. Number 3, writing can make you a better writer. So duh, right? Maybe this is obvious, but I think it's worth stating here because a lot of people don't write because they don't think they're any good, whatever that means. And so what I really try to impress upon people when I'm teaching them, when I'm working with them, is that the way that we get better at something is to do it. We can't just sit there and expect the writing gods to bestow us with this gift of being a great writer. We have to get in there and do it. And this is true for anything we do in life. So take athletes, for instance. The only way that they can improve their skill and stamina is through practices and workouts, repetitive practices and workouts over and over and over, right? Because with practice comes that muscle memory. And I don't just mean in the physical form, because it happens mentally as well. It's like our muscles, our physical muscles, if we're an athlete, get used to responding in certain ways faster and stronger the more we do something. And just like with musicians, the way that they get better and master their instrument is by practicing on a regular basis. And the more frequent the practices are together, the better. And so they also start to develop this muscle memory, this mental muscle memory, where they remember more quickly how to move their fingers up and down the instrument, how to memorize and recall the notes that they have to play. And just like the yogi perfects balance and strength through their practice and paying attention to their body, so does the writer through practice and consistency. So notice here the key word is practice, right? So practice, and this is what I'm talking about, a writing practice. And it is called practice because it is meant to be done over and over and over. Hence the old adage, practice makes perfect. Not that we're striving for perfection. We are striving for regular improvement based on our own previous performance. Right? We're not trying to be like someone else. We're trying to improve our own practice based on our own previous performance. So the third point, writing helps us become better writers. Number 4, writing helps hone our critical thinking skills. So when we write, we are in a position to view all sides of the park. All right, so I'll explain what I mean by that. This is a metaphor I use I used to use it a lot when I taught argumentation, when I was a professor and was teaching academic argumentation and research and writing and rhetoric and all of that. And so in that instance, it's extremely important when you are making an argument to understand all points of an issue, because that's how you gain credibility. You let the reader know that, yes, I have looked into this. I understand all these thoughts about this particular topic. However, based on all those, this is why I think my assertion is the best one, and here's why. So the way it works is I would always give this image of a park and say, envision that I send 4 people out to post up in 4 corners of the park. And I would ask each of them to observe what they saw and then report back to me. And this is all metaphorical, right? We didn't actually do this. So imagine that one person in this corner of the park might see a beautiful fountain. A person in this corner of the park might see a bunch of kids playing and having a great time. Someone down in this corner might see a big pile of trash. And someone in this corner might see a fight break out. So each one of those people is going to have a very different view of the park. However, when they report back to me and tell me what they have seen, I will have the better view because I will have all of their input. And so this also applies when we're writing fiction, because we also have to use varying perspectives from all the corners of the park. And this applies to all the characters. So our protagonist, our antagonist, or antagonists, if we have more supporting characters. And also in fiction writing, when we think about point of view, whether we want to use first, second, or third person, right? So writing can really help us improve our critical thinking skills, because when we have to have all these different perspectives and viewpoints, it then expands how we see things, and it improves our ability to think critically. So number 4 is writing hones your critical thinking skills. Number 5 might be another no-brainer, but it creates a sense of accomplishment. And there's a lot more to this than just having a sense of accomplishment, because with that, it doesn't matter what we do, whether we get 5 pages written in a day, whether we actually get our butt in the chair and write, whether we complete a novel, even in the non-writing world, if we finish a marathon, if it's something grand like finishing a marathon or finishing a degree, landing this coveted job that so many people want, or whether it's something small like completing a daily workout and staying consistent with that, or meditation that we've promised ourselves we're going to do, or getting the laundry done, or the dishes, or balancing the checkbook, right? All of those things are accomplishments. And the feeling that we have when we do them is a lot more pleasant than that feeling that comes when we don't do them. So every time you show up and honor your impulse to write as you have it scheduled on your calendar, which I always suggest, recommend, encourage, and prod people to do, you will feel a sense of accomplishment. And feeling a sense of accomplishment and doing it repeatedly activates those centers in your brain that love reward. It's like this endorphin rush. Even for the small things, we get this little gush of endorphin rush when we finish something that we know we need to be doing or promised ourselves we're going to do. So the more that your brain receives that rush, the more it wants it. So staying true to your writing practice and activating that rush to your brain, that positive reward, encourages you to keep doing it more. And I don't know if you have ever gotten to the point where, say, you were not a person that worked out. You didn't really do a lot of physical activity, and then you became this avid physical fitness person. And I'm using this example because I did this myself. I never used to be very active physically, and then I started running and lifting weights. And what I found was once I got into the groove of doing it and I felt so good all the time, if I had to miss a day, I felt a little off, maybe even a little ill. So when we have a regular writing practice, the same thing happens. We get that rush, we get that sense of accomplishment, and then our body, our brain gets to expect it. And if we miss it, then we feel it and we feel a little off. And when that happens, I think that's when you know that you're well on your way to having a healthy, consistent writing practice. All right? So number 5, having a healthy writing practice creates a sense of accomplishment that does a whole lot more for you than just, oh yeah, I accomplished something today, okay? Number 6, having a healthy writing practice improves your physical health. No kidding, it truly does. Many, many studies have also been done on the physical benefits of regular writing. And I won't get into the details super deeply right here. I will put a link in the description so that you can go to an article that references many different studies that have been done. But basically, studies around writing, especially expressive writing, which can be interpreted in a number of ways. Writing about difficult moments from one's life, or even writing fiction, where we go through difficult things with characters. What was discovered in studies is that there was one group that was given the exercise to write expressively and another group that was not. They had similar surgeries or the same surgery done, and then they were tracked. And what was found is everyone in the group that did the writing, they healed faster from the surgery than those who did not. It's also been found that people with autoimmune issues, those have been improved when people have written expressively on a regular basis. I also remember reading a study about groups of men who had HIV. They found that the T cell counts from the people in the group who wrote, their T cell counts lowered as compared to those who did not. They stayed the same. So I think we all know that writing can help us mentally and emotionally because we've experienced that. But to learn that it can also help our bodies heal, I think is phenomenal. And so to me, that is a huge reason to have a healthy writing practice. When our writing practice is healthy, our bodies are healthy because it helps us process all of that stuck emotion and all those old memories. Number 7, having a healthy writing practice expands your perspective of yourself, of others, and of the world. So this is kind of similar to number 4, that writing will help you expand your perspective. And this is because when you write and you commit to writing from all corners of the park, as I mentioned before, you are forced to look up and outside yourself, right? So it takes us out of that kind of navel-gazy place where some of us can get stuck. And this allows you to really create work that is far more comprehensive, and well-rounded. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, gives you more credibility as a writer, regardless of what kind of writing you're doing. And like I said, this is something that we can't do. We just can't when we're stuck in navel gaze mode. And so I know journaling is very helpful and can actually be cathartic. And so, I respect and honor that. But I've said in past videos that one problem I have, people who journal think that they have written a memoir. And the reality is something more needs to be done with that. It needs to be transformed into something else. And so journaling is great in that it does help us unload and get things outside ourselves, but we can also get stuck in that kind of navel-gazy place where we just keep thinking about our own interior world. So by going to all four corners of the park, like I mentioned, and really understanding human behavior and the human condition, it really cannot help but expand your perspective of yourself, of others, and the world, which also in the end will make you more empathetic, more compassionate, even more than you already are. So that was number 7. Number 8. Having a healthy writing practice enhances your self-discipline. So this is kind of like a chicken-egg thing. It's kind of maybe circular when we really think about it, that yes, having self-discipline will translate to a healthy writing practice and vice versa. So which comes first? Well, they kind of play off each other. When we're trying to start a healthy writing practice or start a writing practice at all, it takes self-discipline. The more we do it, the more disciplined we become. The more we expect it of ourselves, the more our being feels the need to make it happen. So this builds off number 5 that I mentioned earlier. It's the circular accomplishment reward that our brains love so much. And it really helps wear a groove in the, synapses of our brain, which will, in the end, lead to a need to write, right? So when we can get that going in the beginning of getting our butt in the chair, getting our fingers moving, whether it's at the keyboard or writing by hand, and we start to embed that in our brains, that this is what we're doing at this time because it's scheduled on our calendar, whether we feel like doing it or not, eventually our brain starts to say, okay, now's the time to write, here we go. And so we create this nice give and take between self-discipline and having this healthy writing practice that just becomes second nature. So number 8, having a healthy writing practice enhances self-discipline. Number 9, having a healthy writing practice provides healthy escape. So to be honest, the world is upside down, and it's a wonder to me that any of us is able to function at all. And I think a lot of us are kind of the walking wounded, and we're just kind of going along, especially since the pandemic. It's like the world just kind of went back online, and I think we've all been left with a lot of grief and a lot of trauma from the whole thing. It's something that's just kind of on the periphery, but I think we're all so deeply affected by it. And so the need for escape is essential, and not the kind of escape that keeps us away from processing what we need to process, not unhealthy escape like drugs and alcohol to excess, eating to excess, things that are going to ultimately harm us, but healthy escape. And I think writing is one of the healthiest escapes available to us. So between this pandemic, like none of us has ever seen, stupid politics and colossal wars, not to mention our own personal responses to it all, and the dramas from our own lives, it's a lot. And so having a healthy writing practice anytime, but especially at a time like this, is such a good thing to have because we need these little reprieves. And we all need escape sometimes. And like I said, writing is one of the healthiest ways that we can achieve that. Because when we write, not only do we not harm ourselves or compromise our health, we actually improve our health, like I mentioned earlier, in the process. So it really is a win-win, no matter which way you look at it. So number 9, having a healthy writing practice provides healthy escape. Number 10, having a healthy writing practice elevates your emotional intelligence. So this one builds on number 7 that I mentioned earlier, enhancing our perspective and really understanding why humans behave the way they do, whether we agree with that behavior or not, cannot help but lead to empathy and compassion within us, which in turn elevates our emotional intelligence. So improving your emotional intelligence will help you in your writing, yes, but it will also help you in other parts of your life. It will make you become a person that others appreciate and trust. Having a high level of emotional intelligence is always a gain. No matter what way we look at it, no matter what way we come to it, it's always a gain to have high emotional intelligence. Okay, so I know I said that I have 10 reasons, but I have an extra bonus one for you. And this one might even be the most important. And that is that having a healthy writing practice engenders trust within us. And I'll explain what I mean. So again, I've mentioned if you have a morning workout or a morning meditation, it sets a tone for your day when you do that, right? All those little things you do at the beginning of your day that set the tone and just let you know that today's gonna be okay. Even if something else happens, you at least have grounded yourself in a way that helps you, that matters to you. And I've mentioned in a past video, I don't remember which one now, about when I used to be a runner before I got my autoimmune condition. I used to feel like if I could run every morning, I could do the day. And if I could write every day, then I could do life. And I think the reason for that is when we can learn to trust the creative process, the unfolding of telling a story, when we don't have all the answers up front, and when we can see that unfold in a way that all these disparate parts that we maybe had in our head and we've written down, when we can start to see them coalesce and come together, we trust the creative process. And what I have found for myself anyway is that in trusting the creative process, I was able to trust life more. None of us knows what's coming tomorrow or in an hour. We just don't know. We can have plans, but we don't know what's coming. And so by trusting the creative process and seeing how things can work out, maybe not the way we had expected they would, and maybe even if they work out not perfectly, we can begin to trust life and know that there's a deeper meaning behind the things that are happening. And so it allows us to let go a bit more. And when we can let go in life, we are kind of set free, right? So that's why I had to add this one, because I felt like it's really important to just say that by having a healthy writing practice and allowing yourself to see the creative process unfold, I really believe it will allow you to trust life more and not get caught in fear of the future, regret of the past. Learn to be more in the moment and just give way to the unfolding of life. It's like a big, deep exhale after a big, deep, healthy inhale, and it really feels lovely. All right, so those are my 10/11 reasons why you need a healthy writing practice. And I want to mention that my Alchemy of Writing membership group is starting in a couple of days. It's going to be ongoing. I hope you'll get in from the ground floor, because all the founding members will get this price indefinitely as long as you are part of the group, even when it goes up in the future. And you will have access to all the current and future content that I will be adding to this group. And briefly, the way it works is we meet online once or twice each week. You get to choose which frequency you want, and we meet virtually and we just write together. And it's really ideal, I think, for people who want to write and want a sense of community, are very empathic, highly intuitive and sensitive, and maybe neurodivergent, and want the community without all the chatter, without all the feedback. And then if you do find that you want feedback or you have questions about something, there will be a live Q&A at the end of every month. So I hope you will join. I'm very excited. I think it's going to be the beginning of a long collaborative community of like-minded people, and I can't wait to see what unfolds with it. All right, as always, sending you mad writing mojo. Happy writing.